I thought the pregnancy test had to be wrong. I hadn't knowingly slept with my boyfriend in months, and I remembered nothing after the concert. When I asked if I had agreed that night, he stared at the floor and said, "I don't know." The nausea started that morning. My roommate Gemma looked up from the table. "You're pale." "I'm fine." "You don't look fine." My period was late. My chest had been sore for several days, and I had been unusually tired. Still, pregnancy didn't seem possible. Reed and I hadn't knowingly been intimate in months. We had stopped because he struggled to stay aroused while using protection, and I refused to take the risk without it. The last time we tried, he removed the condom and suggested we continue anyway. "We'll be careful," he said. I moved away from him. "No, nothing is going to happen." "You can't guarantee that." He sighed as if I were making things difficult. "No protection means no sex," I said. There was nothing vague about it. I wasn't taking birth control. I didn't want a child, and Reed knew an accidental pregnancy was one of my biggest fears. After that conversation, we stopped trying. He occasionally complained that I was too cautious. Sometimes he joked about getting me pregnant and laughed when I told him it wasn't funny. I bought a pregnancy test that afternoon, mostly to calm myself down. I expected one line. Two appeared almost immediately. I checked the instructions, then took another test. Positive. I bought a different brand on the way home. Positive again. I lined all 3 tests beside the sink and counted backward. Only one night fit. The concert. It had been a little under 3 weeks earlier. Reed, Gemma, and I had driven to see a band we had followed for years. I remembered arriving at the venue, watching the opening act, and laughing with Gemma near the bar. After that, my memory broke apart. I remembered a plastic cup in my hand. Bright lights moving over the crowd. Gemma asking whether I needed water. Reed holding my waist outside the venue. Then the night disappeared. The next morning, Gemma told me I had been in terrible shape. I could barely walk without help. I kept losing my balance, and at one point, I sat on the sidewalk because I couldn't figure out how to get into the car. Reed had been drinking too, but far less than I had. He had stopped earlier and was coherent enough to drive us home. I slept through most of the ride. When we reached the apartment, Gemma unlocked the door while Reed held me upright. She helped guide me to my room while I repeatedly said I wanted to sleep. According to her, I fell onto the bed fully dressed and closed my eyes. Gemma thought I was asleep when she left. Reed stayed behind. I remembered none of it. The following morning, I woke with a pounding headache and bruises on my knees from falling. Reed brought me water and laughed about how badly I had handled the drinks. "You were a disaster," he said. I was embarrassed and apologized for ruining the night. He told me it wasn't a big deal. He never mentioned coming into my room. He never told me anything intimate had happened. For almost 3 weeks, he acted completely normal. That was what disturbed me as much as the positive tests. He had information about my body that I didn't. I placed the tests inside a paper bag and waited for him to come over. Reed arrived that evening carrying takeout. He saw my face and stopped near the door. "What happened?" I removed one of the tests from the bag. "I'm pregnant." He stared at it. His expression changed, but there was no confusion. He didn't ask how it was possible. Instead, he sat on the couch and rubbed his hands against his jeans. "That's definitely positive?" I took 3. He looked down. "Reed, how am I pregnant?" "I don't know." "That isn't an answer." He leaned forward. "I don't remember everything from that night." "What night?" He hesitated. "The concert." A cold feeling settled in my chest. "What happened after the concert?" "I think we might have done something when we got home." "You think?" "I was drinking too." "You drove us home." "That doesn't mean I was sober." "But you remember getting home." "Parts of it." I sat across from him. "Did we have sex?" He stared at the floor. "I think so." I couldn't speak for several seconds. "Did you use protection?" His jaw tightened. "I don't think so." "You knew I would never agree to that." "It wasn't planned." "I had already told you no." "You didn't say no that night." "I couldn't walk." "We were both drunk." "You drove for more than an hour." He stood and began pacing. "You're making it sound worse than it was." "I don't know what it was." "I don't remember it." "Neither do I." "Then how do you know I didn't say no?" He stopped moving. I asked him the question that mattered most. "Did I agree?" He kept his eyes on the floor. "I don't know." Everything inside me went quiet. He remembered enough to believe we had sex. He remembered enough to know he had not used protection. But he could not say I had agreed. "When did you remember something happened?" I asked. "I don't know. Maybe the next day." "And you never told me?" "I didn't think it mattered." "You didn't think it mattered?" "You weren't upset." "I didn't know." He ran both hands through his hair. I thought we were fine. How could I react to something I couldn't remember? I didn't realize you had completely blacked out. You watched me fall over. That was earlier. Gemma said you had to hold me up when we came inside. He looked away. I stood. Leave. Talia. Get out. You're upset. We should talk when you've calmed down. His words made my anger sharper. He spoke as if my reaction were the problem, not the pregnancy or the missing hours. At the door, he turned back. We were in a relationship. I would never hurt you. I said nothing. After he left, I locked the door. I couldn't sleep in my bedroom that night, so I carried my pillow and blanket into the spare room. Every time I closed my eyes, I tried to force the memories back. The concert exit. The car. The apartment. My bedroom. There was nothing after Reed's arm around my waist outside the venue. My mind began filling the gap with possibilities. Had I spoken? Had I opened my eyes? Had I known he was there? Had I tried to move away? By morning, I had started blaming myself. I chose to drink. Gemma had warned me to slow down. Nobody forced me to keep ordering drinks. Maybe I had kissed Reed. Maybe I had reached for him. Maybe he believed I was willing. Then I remembered the boundary I had set while sober. No protection meant no sex. It had never been a suggestion. Gemma found me sitting at the kitchen table the next afternoon. The paper bag containing the tests was in front of me. She looked inside. You're pregnant. I nodded. Her face changed. How? Reed thinks something happened after the concert. He thinks. He says he doesn't remember much. Gemma lowered herself into the chair across from me. Talia, you could barely stand. I know. You kept falling asleep. He says he came into my room later. Did you know he was there? No. Did you agree? I asked him. What did he say? He said he didn't know. Gemma stared at me. I shouldn't have gotten that drunk, I said. That doesn't answer what he did. I made myself vulnerable. You trusted us to get you home safely. What if I seemed interested? You were barely awake. Maybe I woke up later. Do you remember that? No. Does he remember you agreeing? No. She reached across the table and took my hand. You don't have to invent answers for him. For the next 2 days, Reed sent messages constantly. At first, he sounded concerned. Are you okay? Have you called a doctor? We need to decide what to do. Then the messages became defensive. You're shutting me out. This affects me too. Gemma is making things worse. Finally, he wrote. You're acting like I'm some kind of monster. I had not called him anything. I still didn't know what word to use for what happened. But he clearly understood how it looked. I replied with one question. Did I clearly agree? The typing indicator appeared, vanished, then returned. His answer arrived several minutes later. I don't remember. That answer contradicted the certainty he had shown before. First, he claimed I had not said no. Now he admitted he could not remember whether I had said yes. He came to the apartment that evening even though I told him not to. Gemma opened the door but stood in the entrance. I need to speak to Talia, he said. She told you not to come. This is between us. I stepped into the hallway. Reed looked exhausted. His eyes were red and his clothes were wrinkled. For a brief moment, I felt sorry for him. Then I remembered why he was there. Can we talk privately? He asked. No. Gemma doesn't need to hear this. She already knows. His expression tightened. You told her everything? She was there that night. She wasn't in the room. The words came out too quickly. Gemma and I both went still. I stepped closer. So you remember being in the room? I remember parts. What parts? He glanced at Gemma. Can we not do this in the hallway? What do you remember? I remember lying beside you. Was I awake? I think so. Was I speaking clearly? You were responsive. What does that mean? You weren't unconscious. That doesn't mean I understood what was happening. He rubbed his forehead. I didn't force you. Did I say yes? I don't remember exact words. Did I know you weren't using protection? He hesitated. I don't know. Did I agree to take that risk? He remained silent. Then he lowered his voice. I love you. Don't. I would never intentionally hurt you. You knew my boundary. I made a mistake. You made a choice. I was drunk too. You were alert enough to drive, get inside, and remember lying beside me. That doesn't mean I was thinking clearly. You were thinking more clearly than I was. His face hardened. You don't know what you were doing. That is exactly the problem. He stared at me. For days, I had wondered whether I was being unfair. Standing in that hallway, I finally saw that Reed wasn't trying to help me understand what happened. He was trying to control how I described it. I want my key back, I said. Talia, don't do this. My key. You're ending our relationship over something neither of us remembers? I remember the boundary I gave you. You might have changed your mind. Then tell me when I did. He had no answer. I held out my hand. After several seconds, he removed my spare key and dropped it into my palm. You're going to regret turning me into someone I'm not, he said. You did that without my help. Gemma closed the door. My legs gave out before I reached the couch. I sat on the floor and cried until my chest hurt. I wasn't grieving the relationship as much as the person I thought Reed had been. I trusted him with my boundaries. I trusted him to protect me when I could not protect myself. He treated that trust as permission. The following morning, I blocked his number. I also scheduled an appointment to end the pregnancy. That decision was clear. I did not want to remain pregnant, and I could not carry something connected to a night I could not remember. During the appointment call, the woman asked routine questions. How far along did I believe I was? Was I experiencing pain or bleeding? Did I feel safe at home? I said yes, because Reed no longer had access to the apartment. Then she asked whether the pregnancy had resulted from consensual sex. My throat tightened. I don't remember it happening, I said. Her voice softened. You don't have to choose a label right now. That was what I had been trying to do since the first test turned positive. Find the right word. Accident. Misunderstanding. Violation. Calling it consensual required me to believe that someone who couldn't walk, couldn't form memories, and had already refused unprotected sex could make a clear decision. I no longer believed that. Gemma came with me to the appointment and stayed beside me the entire time. She didn't ask questions I couldn't answer or tell me how I should feel. Afterward, we went home. I slept for most of the day. When I woke, the apartment was dark except for the light above the stove. Gemma had left water and crackers on the table. Reed had sent one final email because his number was blocked. He wrote that he was sorry I had interpreted the night the way I did. He said he hoped I would eventually remember that he loved me. I deleted it. There was no apology for entering my room. No apology for ignoring the boundary I had set. No apology for keeping what happened from me until the pregnancy forced him to admit it. He only regretted that I no longer saw him the way he wanted to be seen. I still think about the choices I made that night. I should have stopped drinking earlier. I should have listened when Gemma offered me water. But making myself vulnerable did not give Reed permission to ignore what I had already told him. The apartment is quiet now. Reed is gone. The pregnancy is over. Gemma still leaves her bedroom door open because some nights I wake suddenly, convinced I have remembered something, only to realize it was a dream. I may never know exactly what happened in my room, but I know what happened before that night. I told Reed I would not have unprotected sex. I told him pregnancy was a risk I refused to take. I made that decision while I was sober. And whether he admits it or not, he knew.